How to Lead When You're Not in Charge, Leveraging Influence When You Lack Authority by Clay Scroggins. Summary. Leading without authority. So-called positional authority is a myth. Leaders aren't the only ones who can transform a company. A lack of opportunity doesn't constrain you, only your perception that you lack opportunity limits you. In a progressive firm, your capacity to lead is bound only by your willingness to take on challenges. Don't make excuses or blame others. Understand whatever authority is available to you, and use it to solve problems and cultivate influence. We think we must be in charge if we want to lead, if we want to turn the cart in a different direction. We come to see positional authority as a prerequisite for leadership. Leading without authority is a special skill that requires self-awareness and a strong identity, but it doesn't require an executive title. Great leaders don't need important titles to cultivate influence. Some of the greatest leaders in history, such as Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi, didn't have fancy titles. Real leaders don't need to remind their staff who's in charge. Leaders should inspire their employees, not oppress them. If you wait for an opportunity to lead, it won't happen. Take initiative at every step of your career to demonstrate your leadership abilities. Identifying yourself as a leader. How you see yourself determines how you make decisions, interact with others, build self-confidence and process your emotions. Who you are matters more than what you do. While someone like the fictional character Jason Bourne in The Bourne Identity can have many identities, in the real world, you have to work with what you've got. Trying to be what others want you to be, rather than being secure in your identity, will cause career problems. But, if you are clear about your identity, you can be consistent and confident with others. They will have less power to confuse or worry you. Your moral authority is vastly more important than your positional authority, and nothing erodes moral authority more than undermining the person you claim to be following. Your identity is your conception of yourself. Its 5 components are your past, self in time, other people, self in relationships, your personality, self interior, your purpose, self-agency, and your priorities, self-determination. Like a sound engineer at a concert always fine-tuning the mix, you are responsible for fine-tuning your identity. Having faith that God has a plan for you should eliminate any fear you have of being a leader. Your thoughts and feelings don't own you. You own them, even if they sometimes lie to you. Trusting that your identity is taking shape will strengthen you for your future as a leader. Kibosh versus kibosh. Ambition has a contentious role in leadership because of its associations with forces leaders can misuse, such as prominence, pride and power. But ambition also drives people to excel, take on challenges and contribute to the greater good. Should you let your ambition run wild or tamp it down? The optimal choice is the middle ground, called the kibosh zone. In the Hebrew language, kibosh means to subdue and cultivate. A similar sounding word kibosh means to bring something under your control for your own good through dominant authority. All too often, good kibosh turns into wrong-headed kibosh through distorted ideas about ambition. If you embrace kibosh and cultivate ambition responsibly, you will gain the authority you need. The "lead me" plan. The most common excuse employees give for why they struggle to perform well is some problem with their boss. This is a self-defeating, self-fulfilling prophecy that allows employees to abdicate responsibility for their own lack of leadership. Your boss isn't in charge of you, you are. You control your own emotions, thoughts and decisions. If a leader does not inspire confidence, he or she will be unable to effect change without resorting to brute force. Influence has always been, and will always be, the currency of leadership. To become a good leader, you must demonstrate good followership. Your moral authority is more important than your personal authority. If you respond poorly to a bad decision by your boss or can't handle stress and cast blame, you aren't preparing yourself to become a good leader in the future. To become a leader, start with creating a "Lead Me" plan based on understanding your situation and position, developing a vision for your future, and nurturing the self-control and responsibility you need to achieve the future you envision. Once you understand where you are, determine where you want to go. While plans don't always work out, aiming at nothing gets you nowhere. Great leadership depends on influence. The more influence you cultivate today, the more you'll have tomorrow. Most people can't achieve a goal until they know their priorities. Monitor the motivations and emotions that direct your decisions and behaviors. Ask your friends and colleagues for feedback to identify your motives. Approach this process with curiosity, not judgment. Time to leave. Sometimes, irreconcilable differences will arise between you and your boss, and make it impossible for you to stay where you are. Be sure to leave for the right reasons. Sometimes, acknowledging that your boss doesn't owe you anything will change your perspective. If you don't commit to your job and your boss won't commit to you. While exploitation, undue stress, unethical behavior, and such might drive you to leave any job, sometimes the struggle exists precisely so you will learn a lesson you need to learn. Maybe, just maybe, the reason you're not being led well is that you're not leading yourself well. Your perception of the world, and of your work, shapes your attitudes. A broader vision helps you see the world more clearly and think more deeply about what God may intend for you. The more you understand, the more capable you will be of making worthwhile decisions. If you see the big picture, you will have more faith and hope for the future. You may be better able to support your boss even if he or she isn't the best, especially if you believe that you are positioned where you can do the most good. Knowing that struggle builds character will help you remain positive when you aren't a decision maker or when you must deal with decisions or situations you didn't create or don't want. A larger perspective. Developing a better sense of perspective will give you more energy and more hope and trust in the future. Direct this energy toward the greater good. Work on being more humble. Ask yourself if you are ready for your boss's job. Humility isn't complacency. You are still responsible for your place in the bigger picture. You can get angry at God for not recognizing your innate abilities, or you can work harder to be better. Great leaders don't get defensive. Having a positive outlook reduces selfish pride and helps people work together. But don't be too naive or trusting. Cultivate critical skills. Don't be a rainbow-puking unicorn. Someone who is so upbeat and positive that he or she is in denial about reality. Be a critical thinker, but not a complainer. Critical thinkers want to learn and solve problems. Here, a larger perspective helps you connect the dots, foresee future problems and avoid big mistakes. Take the time and space required to assess and judge. Avoid the trap of being critical rather than thinking critically. Critical people want you to fail. People can bear to hear the harshest truth if you express it to them with love. Reject passivity. People covet leadership roles because they think leadership means control. Without that sense of ownership over an outcome, a person can fall into passivity, wasting time and waiting for something to happen. This is a kind of death. End the passivity cycle by choosing a task and owning it, ideally a job that no one else wants to do. The closer you are to a problem, the more likely you know how to solve it. For example, the cook at Waffle House probably knows how to make a better waffle than the manager. The greatest danger of not being in charge and waiting around until you are is that you never learn to risk or fail and how to handle that experience. Passive people are reactive, not proactive. The person who proactively offers the most thoughtful plan and the most practical solution is most likely to win the next meeting. This speaker doesn't have to offer the best idea, as long as it's organized and delivered well. That kind of a plan takes its own forethought and planning. If you don't actively pursue what you want, you won't get it by waiting. If you fail to believe what God says about your identity, you will fail to reach the potential He's put in you as a leader. Millennials have been called the trophy generation. Some people believe they've been rewarded their whole lives for participation, but not for excellence. They grew up being told they could be whatever they want. Positive affirmation is good, but the downside is risk aversion. You have to fail to learn, and you can't fail if you don't try. Challenge to challenge. Real leaders challenge the status quo. If you have a problem with the decisions your boss makes, you're showing signs of being a leader. Challenging the status quo carries risk. Bosses don't like to hear that they aren't on the right track. To challenge your boss's decision effectively, put yourself in his or her position and contemplate how he or she will feel being criticized. While reacting defensively is normal, great leaders avoid it. Jesus teaches us that leadership isn't about being served. It's about serving. Pay attention to problems your boss wants to solve and come up with solutions. Shane Todd, a Chick-fil-A franchise owner and operator in Athens, Georgia, came up with a great milkshake after the corporate product development team failed to create one that restaurants could produce quickly enough. Even as a franchise owner, Todd didn't challenge the company's product development boss directly. He worked out the problem, tried his solution with customers, got feedback and, after making sure his idea was successful, he presented it to the firm's leaders. He challenged upward and made his milkshakes a sales success. Before you take such risks, determine whether your relationship with your boss can take the challenge. Have you put the work into it? If you are creating something great, your time will come. And if your time hasn't come yet, keep working to create something great. Think of your words as bricks. When you talk to your boss, are you building a wall or a bridge? For instance, don't compare your organization with those that are performing better. Avoid making definitive statements about what isn't working. Resist giving ultimatums that you will leave if things don't change as you prefer. Remind your boss that you're on the same team, with the same desire to do great work. Challenge with love. St. Paul wrote about valuing others above oneself to emulate Jesus, who humbled himself and made himself a servant of humanity. Remind the people with whom you have relationships that you aren't working for yourself but for them. You have to love your boss to lead your boss. Instead of escalating tensions about something you dislike, ask in advance what the best way to discuss it would be, before the situation becomes critical. Challenge your boss privately to avoid putting him or her in an awkward position. Championing your boss publicly is always a good thing, because it builds trust. Try to believe the best of your boss. As in parenting, the more you trust, the more confident the trusted people will feel in making good decisions. As they make better decisions, you will trust them more. Change for a reason. Sometimes you don't have the information you need to challenge upward effectively. And usually, you need to remain emotionally neutral to see a situation judiciously and with compassion. Take the time to harness your emotions so you can approach your boss effectively. Don't try to change things for the sake of change, try to change things to make them better. Your supervisors won't always agree with you, so be content with negative responses to your proposed solutions. Sometimes the unanswered prayer is a gift. Sometimes no simply means not yet. You need the right approach to get what you want, but you must tailor your pitch to the person you are targeting. Be direct with your intentions, but be aware of his or her personality and leadership style. In any meeting, lead with questions to show humility. Demonstrate your openness to others' opinions, you haven't got all the answers. Great leaders. Great leaders led long before they were in charge. Determine why you want to lead and how. What kind of reputation do you wish to have? You need to earn the respect of those you hope to lead. If people don't respect you before you gain power, they won't respect you once you have it. Jesus is seen as a great leader because he used his influence to speak the truth and challenge the status quo. Being a leader doesn't mean being served, it means serving. The transformative power of love will help you cultivate influence and make you the leader you want to be, even when you're not in charge. About the author. Clay Scroggins is the lead pastor of North Point Community Church, the original and largest campus of North Point Ministries, the largest church in America. He holds a doctorate with an emphasis in online church from Dallas Theological Seminary.